Good morning, Eddie. Firstly, can we just have another thought on the match against Nottingham Forest? Obviously a brilliant result for you, took you back up the table, but you weren't too happy with the way the second half played out.
Yeah, second half was in total contrast to the first. I think we struggled with set plays. That was a big part of our game that didn't function well in the second half, and technically we fell off for where the high levels that we were first half. So I think on reflection, I think definite positives to take from that first half. That was us at our attacking best, and lessons to be learnt from the second half.
You've won 13 of your last 16 matches, and you had that brilliant winning sequence over Christmas, but consistency keeps coming up, and it's a word that a lot of supporters are using as well, and perhaps we saw that on Sunday, the inconsistency within a game. How big of an issue do you feel it is or is becoming?
It's been there all season to a degree. I think there's been games where we've been frustrated with ourselves, but then when you mention the statistic 13 wins out of 16, that's not an inconsistent team. I'd certainly take that again in the next 16 games. But I try to be very honest and acknowledge the fact that we have been inconsistent at times, and Sunday certainly reflected that.
How well will you have to play at Anfield to stand a chance of getting something?
Well, I think we need close to a perfect game from our perspective. Certainly, I think learning from the recent game against Manchester City would be a useful starting point for us, where we didn't execute the aggressive game plan that we wanted. We didn't attack enough. For me, we didn't attack the game well enough. So we need to learn from that. And at Anfield, which is a really great environment to play football, but not a great environment if you're not totally there. So we have to acknowledge that and make sure that we turn up.
And what about the emotional side of it? Because I think the last couple of games you've had there's been a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling in them. There's been perhaps some controversial decisions as well. The atmosphere is always noisy. How important is it for the players to get that side of it right?
Yeah, psychologically huge. I think I'd love to think we can go there and grow from that environment that you talk about. It's an emotional stadium, I think, highlighted by before the game and everything that goes into it. Certainly we're going to need to start the game well. We're going to need to put our foot forward in the game and be aggressive, as I said earlier, and we have to have a threat in the game. We have to attack, so that's what we try to do.
And last question, Sandro Tonali, you mentioned on Sunday that he'd had a slight injury, which is why he was left out of the starting 11. Did he come through the time he had on the pitch okay, and are you satisfied that there's no longer-term problem?
Yeah, he came through fine. I anticipate now he'll be fully fit.
Thanks, Rosa. Keith?
Eddie, you said there you need as close to a perfect game as possible. What does a perfect game look like?
How long you got, Keith? Well, we need every aspect of our game to be functioning as it was in the first half, really, against Nottingham Forest, albeit we conceded the first goal. That apart, I thought we responded really, really well. We were free-flowing. We were dynamic, flexible in terms of our tactical play. We showed no fear, and we attacked the game and scored 4 great goals, and in a period of time where we were in a great moment. We had a great flow about us, and we lost that in the second half, and we're going to need that attacking verve that we had in that first period.
And how do you stop Mo Salah, the best attacking player you would suggest in the Premier League at the moment?
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for us. I think it's always not down to any one individual within the team, although he will naturally come up against a direct opponent. It will be about the team supporting that area of the pitch. I think against Arsenal was a great game to reflect on, the recent home game in the Carabao Cup where we defended in 2s, 3s, 4s. We had a mentality that we wanted to defend our goal to the highest level. I don't think we've consistently had that in recent weeks, but we're going to need that in this game.
Is there a chance of Sven being involved this week?
Sven's improving, and he's improving quickly, so we'll see whether he makes the game or not. It'll be close.
And how's Martin been after the weekend? Obviously dropping out in place of Nick Pope. Have you had to have a conversation with him?
Yeah, of course I had a conversation with Martin. It's always difficult because every player wants to play, and I have many difficult conversations with many players on a regular basis, and that's part of my job. But Martin's a top professional, and he'll respond in the right way.
Just finally from me, the club chairman was there on Sunday, took the match in. It appears there's been a couple of board meetings over the last couple of days. What is your understanding of what went on, and have you managed to speak to the chairman during his time here?
Yes, I've had various conversations with him. I think a lot's been discussed at the various board meetings that you mentioned. Probably not for public consumption. I'll leave that. I wasn't in all of those meetings. I was in some of them. But I'm sure some positive outcomes, and the club will be moving forward.
Thanks, Keith. Andy?
Come on, Eddie. You said you need to go away after Sunday and kind of try and find a solution to these inconsistencies, both in-game and from game to game. So I guess it's only a day later, but have you found any solutions or not?
Well, I think solutions. I think the big thing for me was to try and find out what happened in that game from a mental perspective, because for me it was a mental fall-off rather than a technical or tactical issue. And I don't know whether we had half an eye on Wednesday and thinking the game was at 4-1 over. I don't know. I always say in these things, it's never one thing. There's never, you can click your fingers and everything's reversed. It's a case of identifying things and then working on things, and which we will do today in training. We will review in depth as we always do with the players, and then we move forward together. I think overriding that, the most positive thing is what a response from the Manchester City game, where we go 1-0 down. After the Manchester City game, that could have been a difficult moment, but the players gave more, gave extra, and played really well in that first half. So I think that's what I would like to focus on mainly, if that's possible.
Definitely possible. I've racked my brains to try and think of a question that you haven't already been asked about Alexander Isak, so I'll give it my best shot. Faster than the likes of Kane, Aguero, Henry to reach 50 Premier League goals. Does that kind of group, that calibre of players, just sum up how good Alex has been in this time frame?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because I haven't been asked that before, so well done. I do think it highlights how well he's done when you look at the names that you mentioned there. And also you put that together when he first came to the club here, we'd, if my memory's right, just survived relegation. So it wasn't as if he was joining a team that was right at the top of the league and free scoring in that moment. So we've had to try and become that team. But I just think he's come in with a great attitude to the club. He's come in hungry to succeed, eager to help the team. He's not been selfish in that period. He's not thought of himself. He's always played for the team, and I'm delighted for him.
You said something to me, I think it was around about this time last year, that patience is really important when it comes down to developing younger players. Are we seeing the rewards of that patience? I know we talk about Lewis Marley, but with Lewis Hall, because he was almost back to his best at the weekend.
I think there's patience needed in certain cases. I think every player's different. Every player's development from their teens to their early 20s, it's a crucial stage if you're going to become a regular Premier League player for a club like Newcastle. There's a lot that goes into it. So I think all players will have peaks and troughs. There'll be good bits and bad bits. But I think as long as you're consistent and with your feedback, and we try and develop and help the players if there's areas of their game that need help, that's all we can do, while giving them an environment that they can enjoy and feel comfortable in. These things matter. So with players like Lewis Hall, who has done incredibly well overall, if you take a bird's eye view of his career at Newcastle, I think he's been excellent. And again on Saturday, I thought he attacked brilliantly in that first half with Anthony and with Joe Willock on that left-hand side. He played a key role in us dominating that first period.
Just finally, 5 points now separating third and eighth. For a competitive bloke like yourself, how much are you relishing this level of competition, this challenge, with so many teams packed into that European race?
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at the top, Liverpool, quite a long way clear. This is an interesting mix of teams. Some may be expected to be there. Some have had outstanding seasons. I think just from our viewpoint, we're in there fighting and scrapping for those places, and that's what we continue to do.
Thanks, Andy. We've got Damien, Lee, and then Ian.
Eddie, can I just ask about Lewis Miley? Watching him on Sunday, it looked like he's physically bulked out since last season. At one point, there was a burst of pace I've not particularly noticed before. Is it easy because he's so young to forget that he's actually still growing into his body in a sense?
Yeah, very much so. And I think for us, we have to remember that a lot. I think when he played the number of games that he did last year, he looked like he was coping with the load with ease. There looked to be no strain on his body. Now, 17 years old, then he developed a back problem, which was a big blow for him at that stage. So we need to recognise that fact, look after him with the utmost care at this moment in time in his career, because he has the look of a guy in his early 20s. As you say, he's filled out, he looks stronger, quicker, but he's still going through growth spurts, and his body will still be changing on a daily basis. So we need to have that in mind all the time.
And he has the physical stature of a Steven Gerrard, perhaps. What is there a player you would want him to study as he looks to develop his career?
I think it ultimately depends at what position he ends up playing. So for us on Sunday, he played as a number 8, box to box. We want energy, sprinting. We want a lot of physical output in that position. As a number 6, he would play with a little bit more control on that physical side of his game. So Steven Gerrard, I think, is a great one to look at, because I think Steven had that same frame Louis possesses, but as you said, he had that yard of pace. He could go box to box and he could score goals. So great to see Louis contribute goal wise. That's 2 goals in a short period of time, and showing that he can do that part of the game, which he's going to need to do in that position.
Thanks, Damien. Lee?
Eddie, you obviously left Dubravka on Sunday, and a couple of other players have been told on the bench. Do you have to have that level of sort of iciness in you now at this stage of the season, where you are going to be upsetting people, and maybe you're not going to be popular around the place?
Oh, really? I've got used to that a long time ago, Lee. If you're after popularity, don't become a football manager. Because you have to make tough decisions and you have to upset people, and it's the last thing that I want to do on a personal level with any of my players, is disappoint them, upset them. But I'm in the position where I have to do that on a daily basis, weekly basis. I can only pick 11. I have a squad of 20 at the moment that's training regularly, and some really tough calls on players that I really admire and really like that aren't playing. So that's the level of squad we have. All I ask is the players accept the decision and then try to force their way back in.
If Sven does come back in for this game, I guess it gives you another dilemma of maybe you have to change system, or again go back to making an unpopular call for somebody else.
Yeah, but I think that's what you want. I think you need the competition, you need people performing well to drive standards and to drive the quality of our training and ultimately improve the team. So I think the players know that they have to be on their toes with the standard of the squad now, but also we have a lot of games. Everyone will get their opportunity and continue to get their opportunities to showcase that they should start, whether that's starting the game or from the bench. And that is their moment. And of course, there's training every day, so I see everything. So there's really no excuses. Ultimately, when I pick the team, it will usually be based on what I've seen.
One on Liverpool, they changed formation to, I don't think they'd used formation, whatever it was a strange one at Man City. Does that change your preparation now? Because I think in 25 games they'd had a consistent system.
Yeah, you say that. I think every team has things that they tweak game to game depending on the opponent. There's very few teams in the Premier League now that play the same way week in, week out. It can appear that visually in terms of starting systems, but there's tweaks. And I think Liverpool are one of those teams that do change quite a bit. But it's subtle things. It's not necessarily big shifts in system. I think they've been very consistent with that in that respect. And naturally, when they've been as successful as they are, they haven't had to change too much. They've been in a good moment. Their players have performed very well. Arnie's done an incredible job with the squad. So it doesn't change too much from our perspective, because we're always looking at these things and seeing what we need to do to try and win the game.
Thanks, Lee. We've got to Ian, George, and then Luke.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Virgil van Dijk in the last couple of days has come out and said Liverpool need to make Anfield a horrible place for visitors. How do you react to that? And do you think you've got a squad, group of players who thrive in a hostile environment.
Yeah, well, I think their record at Anfield this season has been very strong. So I think whatever they're trying to do, they've been doing it well from their viewpoint. I think we can only look from ours, and from our viewpoint, we have to be mentally very strong in this game. We have to be very clear on what we're trying to do tactically, and we have to have the strength to try and impact our game plan on them.
You mentioned tactics there, and you mentioned Sven Botman could be available again. Would you consider playing all three centre-backs like you did in the Carabao Cup second leg?
I consider everything. Whether I actually do it or not, I don't know. But naturally, I think when you've got good players, you're always thinking of ways to get your best players consistently into the team, but not to the detriment of the team. I think that's the key point. It has to work. We felt it would work against Arsenal. I'm sure there'll be other games that will utilise that system.
Thanks, Ian. George?
Morning, Eddie. With
Morning.
the other game on the horizon, which I won't name, does any part of you have to be a poker player tomorrow night?
Well, I was never any good at poker, so there's a bit of breaking news for you. No, I don't think so. I think this game in isolation takes preference over any future game that we have. So we'll look at this game in total isolation and just try and deliver something that we think can give us the best conditions to try and win. And that will be the same for any future games we have. So we're not trying to be clever. We just want to try and win this game.
And then obviously not expecting state secrets or anything here, but in terms of your discussions with the chairman, were they supportive? Were they encouraging? Have you taken heart from those discussions?
Yeah, I always take heart from seeing him and talking with him, because you see his passion for Newcastle and you see how much he directly cares about everything that's going on here. So, no, good conversations. He was in good spirits and enjoyed seeing us win.
Thank you. Luke?
Lewis Miley's come in for a lot of praise. I think he was highlighted on Match of the Day too, which I suspect you didn't watch. But how good can he be, and what are the pitfalls for him as a young player at 18 who's sort of breaking out into the Premier League and getting all that attention?
Well, I didn't watch it because I was in bed asleep at that time, so I could face you guys fresh today. Oh, was it? Okay, apologies for that. See, so you can tell that I didn't watch it. Genuinely didn't watch it. Pitfalls.
How good can he be, and what are the pitfalls for an 18-year-old at a club like Newcastle?
Yeah, well, he can be. I know I say this quite a bit, but he can be anything in the respect that he could really take his position, solidify that position, and be outstanding for us for a number of years. Now, he's going to need a bit of luck to do that, because every player needs to stay fit and injury-free, and that's why I say we need to look after him, especially in this early moment in his career. I think that's important, and I take that duty seriously. But he has all the technical capabilities, and most importantly, the mental capabilities, and he's shown that. Played some huge games, but played them just normally like he does in training, which is a huge compliment. He can do a little bit of everything, Louis. He's got the running capacity, the big lungs and it'll enable him to physically produce what he needs to produce in those positions. He's very composed in training. He's one of our best technical players. So I see a bright future, but he'll have all the pitfalls that young players have. He needs to stay very humble, very level. He needs to concentrate on his training. He needs to try and listen to his coaches. Take on a lot of information that he'll get and take it step by step.
Pivoting to the goalkeepers, what does Nick Pope give you as a goalkeeper, and how good has he been for you as Newcastle manager?
Yeah, well, I think you go right back to the start, and again, you look at the journey he's had with us. I think he's been outstanding. He is a big presence, Nick, obviously in size, but also personality. Well liked within the squad. Very humble person, works extremely hard. Very good from set plays and his physical frame and coming out and catching or punching from those situations. For me, one of the best shot stoppers, if not the best shot stopper in the Premier League. He's always had the ability historically to make big saves. So I think they're his big strengths, and we're certainly going to need them in the coming weeks.
Just finally, I don't know what you can say. You've been quite heavily linked with a move for James Trafford, the Burnley goalkeeper, to the extent that people were saying personal terms agreed. Is there anything you can say on that, please?
Well, I don't believe we're in that situation with any player because the summer window's a long way away and we've not begun those discussions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. We've got to Jordan, Joe, and then Kieran.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just on Lewis Hall, how pleased have you been with his attacking output this season, and can he improve on it as well?
Yeah, I think we've worked hard with Lewis in that respect, and he's worked hard on his game. He's done a lot of work. I can picture him now, after training, working on his crosses, his delivery, getting into those positions as well. We work a lot on relationships in the team and building those relationships, especially attacking-wise, with the players that you're playing with, so you get to know each other's game. So I think Lewis has attacked really well. He's got a number of assists. I still feel there's room for improvement. The attacking play of our fullbacks is fundamentally so important to how we play. And we want both players to attack and attack regularly. And yeah, we work a lot on the relationships between our wide men and our fullbacks. So Lewis can be pleased, but I know we want more.
And defensively as well, how much do you feel he's came this season in terms of that aspect of his game, and how much will that be challenged tomorrow night up against probably Mo Salah?
Yeah, I think he'll know tomorrow that he's going to have a real battle on his hands if he plays and Mohamed Salah plays. I think probably the ultimate test in the Premier League, really, if you look positionally for a left-back, is to do well against a player of his qualities. And he's got standout qualities, and the way that he plays, you sort of know what he's going to do, but it's very difficult to stop. And Liverpool find ways to get him a lot of the ball as well. So credit to him and the team for how he's performed this year. It'll be a big test for us to stop their right-hand side.
Thanks, Jordan. Joe?
Hi, Eddie. Just wondering about an update on Joe Linton and how close he is either for tomorrow or obviously Sunday's game.
Again, with Joe, similar to Sven, really improving, doing really well, pushing. And again, he's another player that will be quite close.
And how big if he is able to play tomorrow, will he be with that right side, with Trent and Mo Salah, his sort of defensive attributes and ball-winning attributes, how important will he be in that battle?
I think Joe's always important from a number of perspectives, and certainly defensively and defending set plays are two of those key aspects that we've missed when he's not there. He brings a physicality and a strength that when he's missing, there's an obvious presence missing in our midfield. So Joey's a massive player for us. We hope to get him fit very soon.
And final one for me, just on Harvey Barnes. He's obviously struggled to nail down a regular spot with injuries last year and the form of Anthony Gordon. What do you see as his role between now and sort of the end of the season?
Well, I see his aim should be to play regularly. He's an outstanding player. Harvey's been missed by us with his injury. He has the ability to play both sides. We're light in terms of wide men, and Harvey's absolute Premier League quality, and I always believe if Harvey plays, he'll get goals. So massive player to introduce. We're delighted he's fit. Now we need to get him back to his very best.
Thanks, Joe. Go to Kieran, Craig and Martin.
Morning. I appreciate you can't say much about the meetings you were in, but were you encouraged by what you saw, what you heard about the club's direction and strategy moving forward?
You're right, I can't say anything. And I was. I was very pleased because the ambition, the drive to be successful is still very much there from everyone connected with the club.
And you went to Anfield a couple of seasons ago and were booed off even in defeat, really got under Liverpool's skin. Is that decided the game you want to see from your team tomorrow again?
Yeah, I think we want to be competitive and we want to. We always respect our opponents, but as soon as the whistle blows, we're there to win, and we're there to do everything in our powers to try and get that result. So I want to see that determination from the team. I don't think we saw it against Manchester City. There was a sort of an inevitability with our performance of what was going to happen, and that can't happen in any away game.
Thank you. Craig?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
The first half on Sunday showed exactly what your team is capable of at its best. Did the second half focus minds with regard to some of those in attendance as to the need for more, the need for reinforcement after 2 years without?
I don't know. I think I can only look at it from my perspective. which I try to do, and I always trying to control what I can control. So I was disappointed personally in myself in the second half. I felt I needed to do more to try and help the team. And I always try and take that responsibility internally. Because if I'm looking external all the time and we need this and we need that, if I don't get it, then I'm not directly helping the players, and that's what I always try to do in every moment. So I'll take that on myself. But of course, I think it goes without saying, we haven't had investment in the team due to PSR for a number of windows, and that, of course, directly has a knock-on effect. I'm not blind to that fact, and I've commented on it many times. But in the meantime, I need to try and do better.
Okay, Martin.
How important are these meetings taking place at the minute, Eddie? And does there need to be major change to compete with the likes of Liverpool?
Yeah, we certainly, go to the second part of Craig's question, really, we certainly need, if we're going to catch the teams above us, we're going to need to drastically improve everything that we're delivering still. And that goes right across the board in every department of the football club, because we have so much to do to get to the top. It's not going to happen just by thinking it. It's not going to happen by willing it. We have to actually deliver it. And that takes money, that takes investment, that takes smart thinking, strategic thinking, which I know is going on at the club. But then we need to implement it all.
And along them lines, how frustrating has it been to kind of put the brakes on the club for the last 18 months?
Yeah, well, I think just in purely in terms of investment and taking the team forward, of course, we've taken a bit of a hit, and we understand that, and I acknowledge that. But it's through no one's fault, and we have to live in the world of the reality. We know that we want to take the team forward again. We're desperate to do that. We have ideas to do it, and hopefully we can make that happen in the future.
And last one, you've proven the team can compete with the top clubs. Can it compete financially with those clubs at some point in the future? And has that message been reiterated the last few days?
I think it can in the future. In terms of an actual date for that, I think that's very difficult to predict from my perspective. But definitely I think if there's a willingness and there's ideas and bright thinking, we can get there. It may take a bit of time, because these clubs that we're talking about are way ahead of us in terms of their income. But that's all part of the club's growth, and that will take time. I think everyone would acknowledge that.